Hey, amazing people. We know you guys love these stories, but most of you listening aren't subscribing. Our subs have been quite low this month, and we're really close to 20,000 subscribers, so please be a legend and smash the subscribe button. And like this video, it will really help support us. Thank you so much.
I was really excited for my date with Steve. We had been chatting online for a couple weeks, and he seemed really nice and genuine. When he asked me out to dinner, I immediately said yes. We decided to go to a fancy French restaurant downtown. I thought it was a little pricey for a first date, but Steve insisted on taking me somewhere upscale. I wore my favorite black dress and did my hair and makeup nicely. I even put on a spritz of my favorite perfume to smell extra nice. When I arrived at the restaurant, Steve was already there waiting. He looked just like his photos. Tall, muscular build, short brown hair. We greeted each other somewhat awkwardly with a quick hug. The waiter led us to our table near the back of the restaurant. Steve pulled out my chair for me, which I thought was a nice gesture. We started looking through the menus and I was shocked by the high prices. The cheapest entree was $40. I wondered if Steve realized how expensive this place was when he suggested it. We both decided what to order. I went with the filet mignon and Steve ordered the lobster. I don't eat seafood myself, but the lobster did look delicious. Steve got the largest lobster on the menu, which made my steak dinner seem cheap in comparison. While we waited for our food, Steve and I tried making small talk. He seemed a little fidgety, constantly looking around the restaurant. I noticed his eyes lingered on other women walking by our table. It made me feel self-conscious, like he was checking them out right in front of me. One woman was wearing a tight red dress, and Steve practically gawked as she passed. When our food arrived, I tried to start up a conversation about my interests. I told Steve how much I love dogs and how I hoped to adopt one someday. He flat out said he hated dogs and thought they were annoying and should go extinct. I was pretty shocked by his response. It made me wonder if we were compatible at all if we disagree on something so fundamental. How could someone hate man's best friend? Throughout the date, Steve just seemed distracted and disinterested. He was on his phone a lot and barely maintained eye contact with me. The conversation was stilted and awkward. I kept trying to engage him by asking questions, but his responses were brief. It was like pulling teeth trying to get more than a one-word answer from him. When the check came, Steve didn't even glance at it before saying he must have forgotten his wallet. He asked if I could cover the bill. I was pretty annoyed, since he was the one who insisted we go somewhere so expensive. The bill was nearly $200. Reluctantly, I paid with my credit card while Steve said he would pay me back. After dinner, Steve asked if I wanted to walk around downtown with him. I agreed, hoping maybe we could turn the date around. But as we were leaving, he suddenly said he needed to run into a shop to grab a snack. He asked me to wait outside for him. Then I watched in disbelief as he took out his wallet and paid for his items, so he hadn't forgotten his wallet at all. At that point, I had enough of this dreadful date. I called an Uber and left while Steve was still in the store. When he texted me later asking what happened, I explained that I didn't think we were a good match and wished him well. I also requested he pay me back for the expensive dinner, which of course I never heard back about. Looking back, there were so many red flags with Steve right from the beginning, but I was too excited about the date to see them initially. Now I'm going to follow my instincts if a guy seems self-centered, distracted, or cheap on a first date. I won't let myself get stuck in an uncomfortable situation like that again. Dating can be tricky, and unfortunately, you have to kiss a lot of frogs before finding a prince. But now I have a better idea of the things to watch out for so I don't waste time on guys like Steve again. All I can do is laugh about the experience and be thankful for the lesson. At least it will make for a good story to tell my friends later. I recounted the details of the date to my best friend Jenny the next day over coffee. She was shocked when I told her how Steve ogled other women right in front of me. "What a jerk," she exclaimed. "You should have poured your drink on him." I laughed at the visual, but admitted I was too much in shock to react to much in the moment. Jenny agreed that him pretending to forget his wallet was really slimy. He totally took advantage of you. "I can't believe he stiffed you with the whole bill." I nodded and sighed. In hindsight, I should have put my foot down about splitting the check beforehand. But I guess I wrongly assumed my date would actually pay like a gentleman. My friend said Steve's behavior was unacceptable. "Don't waste another minute thinking about that creep. He's clearly got issues," Jenny remarked. I knew she was right. His treatment of me revealed a lot about his character, none of it good. Jenny tried to reassure me that not all guys were like Steve. There are still good ones out there. You just have to weed through the losers. I appreciated her optimism, though it was hard not to feel disheartened after such an awful date. We spent the next hour coming up with creative ways I could get back at Steve, like signing him up for embarrassing junk mail. Or you could send that lobster bill to collections, Jenny joked. While I had no intention of stooping to Steve's level, envisioning petty revenges did make me feel slightly better. The whole experience reminded me that I need to trust my intuition more on first dates. At the first sign of rudeness, flakiness, or dishonesty, I should be ready to cut things off. I'm worth more than wasting time on guys like Steve who just want to take advantage. When I got home, I deleted Steve's number from my phone and our entire text thread. I didn't want any lingering reminders of him. Out of sight, out of mind. I hoped I would eventually forget about the crummy date, but it did teach me to watch for red flags and not tolerate bad behavior in the future. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship and decided I would try one of those newfangled dating apps to get back out there. I was skeptical at first, but my friend convinced me it would be a good way to meet new people. She even helped me set up my profile and pick out some flattering photos. I started swiping and matching with some guys who seemed nice enough at first. There were a few normal conversations that just fizzled out, which is pretty common on these apps. But then I matched with Dom. His profile looked great. He had a friendly smile in all his pics and said he enjoyed hiking, reading, and trying new restaurants. We exchanged messages for a few days and really hit it off. The conversation flowed easily and he seemed passionate about his interests. He even asked thoughtful questions to get to know me better. I was pleasantly surprised to meet someone I connected with so quickly on a dating app. When he finally asked me out to dinner, I enthusiastically said yes. We picked a nice but casual restaurant that happened to be one of my favorites. I took extra care getting ready, making sure my outfit and hair looked just right. This was the most excited I had been for a first date in a long time. But when I got to the restaurant, things started to feel off. The first thing I noticed was that Dom was shorter than me, by several inches. I know height shouldn't matter, but in his photos he appeared much taller. I realized he must have used some kind of photo editing or tricky angles to make himself look taller. Red flag number one. He also arrived almost an hour late with barely an apology. I had to keep assuring the hostess I was still waiting for someone when she gave me pitying looks every 10 minutes. I checked my phone wondering if something came up or if I had the time wrong, but no new messages. When Dom finally strolled in, he didn't even acknowledge his extreme tardiness. Just launched right into bragging about himself without even asking how my day was. He went on and on about how he taught himself to speak flawless Russian, served on a jury, and even corrected the judge about a law which the judge then thanked him for. With each outrageous claim, my skepticism grew. I tried to gently change topics to give him the benefit of the doubt, but the self-aggrandizing just continued. About halfway through the meal, when his stories became too far-fetched to believe, he excused himself to the restroom. I figured he just needed a break from all his own talking. But 15 minutes passed and he still wasn't back. Then 20 minutes. I checked my phone again, wondering if I should just discreetly slip out, but didn't want to cause a scene if he came back. After 30 minutes, the servers kept coming by my table to refill my water, giving me polite smiles that barely concealed their pity. Finally, one of them came over and just bluntly asked, "Is this some kind of dare or blind date gone wrong?" I was mortified but also weirdly relieved someone else realized what a train wreck this was. The servers felt so bad they even helped me quickly pay for my half of the food so I could leave. I explained I really needed to go and slipped the hostess some cash to cover the rest of the bill in case Dom ever came back from the bathroom. I power walked to my car without looking back. My phone buzzed with a call from Dom just as I pulled out of the parking lot. I sent his call to voicemail and drove home in stunned disbelief that this was my Friday night. The calls kept coming in rapid succession even after I was home. Dom must have called me over a dozen times. I declined each one before finally turning my phone off completely. Who even was this guy? This whole night was utterly bizarre. The next morning, I decided to just block Dom's number altogether. I had zero desire to ever communicate with him again after that disastrous date. It was almost funny looking back on all his ridiculous lies, except for the part where I wasted hours of my time in a perfectly nice outfit. After a few weeks passed, I cautiously re-downloaded the dating app, making sure to avoid any guys who seemed remotely similar to Dom. I was a bit warier this time around and not as quick to get excited. But eventually I matched with Mark, who was genuine and down to earth. We exchanged several messages over the course of a week or so before meeting up for coffee. I almost canceled last minute out of lingering first date nerves, but forced myself to go. I'm glad I did because we hit it off right away in real life too. Turns out you can find someone special online if you learn to read the signals and don't get swept up too quickly. Mark and I have now been dating happily for several months. He continues to impress me with his compassion and integrity. While that one experience with Dom was a total nightmare, it taught me to trust my instincts and vet profiles more carefully. Dating apps can definitely be dicey, but they can also help you meet someone worthwhile if you stay alert. I'm glad I didn't let one bad date sour me on trying again, but I will certainly be scrutinizing those profiles much more carefully from now on after my brief time matching with Dom. That evening was so bizarre I can laugh about it now, but I never want to repeat those wasted hours or the avalanche of calls that followed. Thank goodness I ultimately blocked him and moved on to someone who treats me with respect. My dating app ordeal had a happy ending after all. I had just downloaded one of those trendy new dating apps and created a profile. After swiping on a few profiles, I matched with a guy named Dax. He seemed normal at first, attractive, charismatic, funny. We started chatting and really hit it off. After a week or so of constant messaging, he suggested we meet up for a drink. I was excited to finally meet this guy in person. We met at a bar downtown. Dax looked just like his photos. He was charming and the conversation flowed easily. After a few drinks, he told me about a private party happening that night hosted by one of his friends. He said it was an exclusive event at a secret venue with music, drinks, and lots of interesting people. It sounded mysterious and thrilling. I immediately said yes, caught up in the excitement and novelty of it all. Dax drove us to the location, which turned out to be an unmarked building on the outskirts of the city. Right away, I felt uneasy. This didn't seem like the type of place that would host a normal party. Still, I went along with it, not wanting to ruin the night or make Dax think I was lame. We entered the building and descended a long staircase. I could hear pulsing music becoming louder. At the bottom was a heavy metal door, which Dax knocked on in a peculiar pattern. A slit opened and someone peered out, then opened the door. The party was in a dark basement lit only by a few red lights. The music was industrial and aggressive. There were around 30 people, mostly men, standing around drinking and shouting. Some were doing drugs out in the open. The energy felt dangerous, hostile even. My heart started racing. Dax grabbed my arm and led me through the crowd, introducing me to his friends. They all had an edgy, reckless look about them. Some had weapons tucked into their belts and tattoos on their necks and faces. These were not the kind of people I would usually associate with. I realized I had made a huge mistake coming here. As the night went on, things got more rowdy. Fights broke out, drugs were doing openly, and drunken arguments erupted. I felt totally trapped and afraid. I pulled Dax aside and told him I wanted to leave immediately. He just laughed and said the real fun was only beginning. The look in his eyes scared me. He seemed almost manic. I knew I had to get out of there alone. When Dax was distracted, I made my way upstairs and slipped out the door unnoticed. My heart pounded as I ran down the dark street looking for a cab or another person. I eventually found a main road and waited down a taxi. I felt an overwhelming sense of relief once I was inside and told the driver my address. I deleted the dating app as soon as I got home. Going to that party was one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made. I put myself in real danger all because I got caught up in the fantasy someone created online. You really can't trust strangers or take things at face value, especially on dating apps. From now on, I'll make sure to meet in public places and get to know someone for a long time before going anywhere private with them. My night could have ended so much worse, and I'm lucky I followed my instincts and got out of there. I've learned my lesson: no more parties with randos from the internet, no matter how exclusive or exciting they seem. In the days following this traumatic experience, I couldn't stop thinking about how foolish I had been. I kept replaying everything in my mind, wondering how I could have been so unknowing. Dax seemed so genuine at first, but it was clearly all an act to lure me into a dangerous situation. I felt violated, like my trust had been exploited. My friends and family were shocked when I told them what happened. They reinforced that none of it was my fault, but I still felt ashamed I had put myself in harm's way. I became much more cautious and worried when meeting people from dating apps after that. I made sure to thoroughly vet anyone I chatted with, looking them up on social media and doing background checks. I only agreed to meet in populated places like coffee shops or restaurants, never private parties or homes. A few times, I would show up to a date and instantly realize the guy had totally misrepresented himself online. I learned to trust my instincts and walk away if anything seemed off. The experience made me hyper aware of all the potential risks that come with online dating. You really don't know anything about a person or who they truly are. I read articles about dating app stalkers, predators, and horror stories of assault or abduction. It made me anxious to even open the apps, but I still wanted to find a relationship. I just had to be a lot smarter and more selective. My friends couldn't believe I was brave enough to keep trying online dating after what I went through. For me, it was important not to let fear win. Yes, I had to change my mindset and approach, but if I gave up completely, I would be letting my trauma engulf me. I had to find a balance between protecting myself and putting myself back out there, but I only did so in small increments, gradually testing the waters again. In the end, the experience taught me to follow my gut. If a situation or person seems shady, don't feel obligated to stick around. Don't worry about looking cool or rude. Prioritize your safety and well-being above all else. I learned how powerful manipulation can be, and that predators often exploit people's desire to be liked and fit in. But true connections take time and effort. Rushing into risky situations with strangers usually doesn't end well. While I'm much more careful now, I didn't swear off dating apps forever. However, I will never let excitement cloud my judgment and override my common sense again. I listen to my intuition and don't take unnecessary chances. What happened to me was terrifying, but also served as a crucial lesson. I emerged wiser and stronger, with a greater awareness of my own boundaries. The experience left a lasting mark on me, but didn't defeat me. I still can't believe how quickly things went from a dream to a nightmare. It started out so innocently. I downloaded one of those popular dating apps on a whim, just to see what all the fuss was about. I hadn't been on a date in ages and figured this could be an easy way to dip my toe back in the water. After setting up my profile and answering a bunch of questions about my interests and values, I started swiping. There were definitely some creepy guys and cheesy pickup lines, but overall it wasn't as scary as I thought it would be. In fact, I was having fun chatting with people, and it was a confidence boost matching with some really attractive men. One guy in particular caught my eye. His name was Matt, and he just seemed too good to be true. Tall, fit, sweet, funny. Basically my ideal man. We hit it off right away, sending each other flirty messages back and forth. He asked thoughtful questions and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me better. After a week or so of constant messaging, Matt asked if we could move the conversation off the app. He said he didn't like how public the messaging was and would prefer to text directly. I hesitated at first, but eventually gave him my number. I figured he seemed nice enough and was just looking for more privacy. The conversation flowed just as effortlessly off the app. We texted constantly, morning to night. Matt would send selfies from work or while he was at the gym. He really was just as cute as his profile pictures. I started to develop real feelings for him. When he asked for more revealing photos of me, I got an uneasy feeling in my gut. But Matt insisted it was just for his eyes because he liked me so much. He promised to delete them right after and said he would never betray my trust. Against my better judgment, I sent him a few mildly risque photos. Nothing too explicit, but certainly more than I would ever post publicly. Right after I hit send, the text from Matt stopped. Just radio silence. I couldn't figure out what happened. One minute we were flirting up a storm. The next it was like I didn't even exist. I tried texting and calling, but no response. When I checked the dating app, his profile had been deleted. A knot formed in my stomach as I realized I'd been ghosted. I was angry at myself for trusting a stranger and started to feel ashamed about the photos I sent. A week later, my nightmare became even worse. I was out shopping when I got a text from an unknown number. It was pictures of me, the same private photos I had sent Matt. Underneath was a message demanding $500 or else this person would post the pics online for everyone to see. I froze in disbelief and horror. This had to be some kind of sick joke or scam. I refused to pay and instead told them I was going to the police. But the anonymous texter just laughed and said it didn't matter because the photos were already circulating on vengeful ex-girlfriend sites. When I frantically searched online, sure enough there were the nude photos I had sent Matt. Only my face was blurred out, but everything else was visibly me. The captions claimed I was a cheat and homewrecker. My stomach churned with anxiety. wondering how many people I knew might stumble across these pictures. Over the next few days, the anonymous blackmailer kept demanding money and making threats. They said they would send the unedited full photos to my boss and family if I didn't comply. I felt trapped and violated. This was all because I had trusted a dating app stranger. I ended up shutting down all of my social media to avoid getting bombarded with messages about the photos. The blackmailer kept harassing me, and I worried they might even physically show up at my house or job. It was a waking nightmare I felt powerless to stop. My experience is a cautionary tale about the dangers that can lurk behind harmless-looking dating profiles. You really don't know who is on the other end or what their true intentions are. I learned the hard way not to share anything you wouldn't want the whole world seeing. As virtual as it feels, there can be real-life consequences and risks that follow you offline. My lapse in judgment nearly cost me my reputation, privacy, and peace of mind. I'm still trying to pick up the pieces, but I'm hopeful other women can avoid going through something similar. A dating app match may seem perfect, but remember, not everything is as it appears. Looking back now, I see all the red flags I ignored when Matt first messaged me. His profile didn't have much personal information, and he was overly flattering right from the start. I got caught up in the fantasy he presented and ignored my gut instinct telling me something was off. The harsh truth is that Matt never really cared about me as a person. He just wanted to manipulate me into sending revealing photos that he could use for his own twisted purposes. And I fell for it because I was so eager to make a connection after being single for so long. I replay all our conversations in my head, trying to pinpoint exactly when things turned. At what moment did Matt decide to betray my trust and use me? Were any of his sweet messages even real, or was I just a pawn in his sick game the entire time? The police weren't able to track down the fake accounts blackmailing me. All they could do was advise me to change my number, remove my dating profiles, and lay low until it blew over. I knew Matt or whoever was behind it all would likely never face any consequences. Part of me wanted to warn every girl on that dating site about what happened, but I also didn't want to relive the humiliation publicly. The police assured me this guy probably tried the same scheme on dozens of other victims. I'd just been unlucky enough to fall for it. For a while, I became hyper-vigilant about my online presence. I Googled myself regularly to see if the photos surfaced anywhere else. The paranoia was exhausting, but I was terrified of what this anonymous stalker might do next. The silver lining is I'm no longer blaming myself for what happened. I've learned from my mistakes and will be much more cautious about sharing personal information with anyone online. My hope is my story can help prevent other women from becoming victims too. I had matched with Patrick on Swiprite a few weeks prior, and we really hit it off chatting. He seemed so charming and sweet online. We made plans to finally meet up for dinner at a nice restaurant downtown. I spent extra time getting ready, wanting to look perfect for our first date. I wore a new black dress and did my hair and makeup with care. I'll admit I was nervous, but mostly eager to meet Patrick after our great conversations. When I arrived at the restaurant, Patrick was already at our table. He looked just like his photos, tall and handsome with warm brown eyes and a bright smile. He stood to greet me, seeming genuinely happy to see me. We sat down and he kindly complimented how nice I looked. The conversation flowed easily as we discussed the menu options. Patrick was as charming in real life as he'd been over text. I was really enjoying his company so far. After we ordered, Patrick told me about his job and hobbies while I told him about my work and passion for hiking. He was interesting and funny. There were no awkward pauses, which I took as a good sign. I thought this was one of the best first dates I've had in a while. Everything felt comfortable and natural. The waiter soon returned with our food, politely asking how everything tasted so far. Before I could assure him it was delicious, Patrick's expression suddenly shifted. In an annoyed tone, he asked the waiter what business it was of his to know. The waiter calmly explained he just wanted to ensure we were enjoying our meals, but Patrick curtly accused him of openly flirting with me as date. I was mortified by this uncalled-for outburst. The waiter had simply been doing his job, not flirting at all. I tried smoothing things over, but Patrick kept glaring at the poor man. The waiter quickly apologized for nothing I might add and hurried away. An uncomfortable silence now hung over our once easy conversation. Patrick grumbled about the waiter inappropriately hitting on me right in front of him. I was put off by this sudden burst of irrational anger and jealousy, so unlike the charming man I'd been chatting with for weeks, we ate the rest of the meal in awkward silence as I replayed the scene in my head, confused by his drastic overreaction. Once we finished eating, Patrick acted ready to move on, asking if I wanted to get dessert somewhere else, but I was still upset over the incident and told him I wasn't feeling well, needing to go home. He looked annoyed but didn't argue. We walked out with an impersonal, brief hug before heading our separate ways. Over the next few days, I avoided responding to Patrick's messages. After seeing that angry display, I knew I could not continue seeing it. His temper and irrational jealousy were alarming. I felt fooled that I hadn't noticed any warning signs earlier. I was relieved to have found out the truth on just the first date rather than becoming more involved. It was disappointing, but I knew I had to trust my instincts and move on from Patrick. In hindsight, it was better it ended sooner. After that experience, I decided to be more cautious when meeting anyone from dating apps again. I learned my lesson about being overly trusting up front. From now on, I would keep my guard up more until I really got to know someone. This horror story thankfully had a good ending. Nothing terrible happened, and I protected myself by not going down a dangerous path with Patrick. But it taught me the importance of looking for red flags and proceeding slowly when meeting someone new. I went into online dating a bit stupidly, so this incident served as a wake-up call about people not always being who they seem. In the future, when I eventually try a dating app again, I will apply the lessons learned and not repeat past mistakes. Being more wary and taking time to truly know someone first can help avoid winding up in another distressing first date situation. Looking back, I realized I ignored some subtle concerning signs from Patrick during our online chats. He would sometimes get a bit possessive, not liking when I talked about male friends or coworkers. At the time, I thought it was sweet protectiveness, but in hindsight, it was possessiveness. He also had a short temper over little things in our conversations, quick to get defensive or angry if I said something he disagreed with. I brushed it off since people can act differently via text than in person. But those were small glimpses of his true personality that I overlooked. If I could do it again, I would have paid closer attention to those subtle red flags instead of making endless excuses for them. But it was my first try at online dating, and I was too eager to think I found an amazing guy. I learned to never fully let my guard down with someone I just met online, no matter how charming they seem. Take it slowly and watch for concerning signs. Meet in public first and don't ignore your instincts. Don't let excitement about meeting someone new override your common sense. It's okay to pump the brakes if you notice anything questionable. Your safety comes first. My friends were supportive when I told them what happened with Patrick. They agreed his behavior was unacceptable and said I did the right thing, ending it immediately. I was lucky to have that reminder to be more cautious in the future. One of my friends had actually matched with Patrick on the same app a while back, but she said their conversations had red flags like him getting jealous easily and demanding to know where she was all the time. She quit talking to him quickly, having sensed something off about him. I wished I had known that story before going out with Patrick myself, but it was a lesson learned. While that experience made me more wary, I didn't let it scare me away from online dating forever. A few months later, once I felt ready again, I re-downloaded Swipe Right and updated my profile. I took it slowly, keeping our conversations light at first when I matched with men. I looked for any subtle concerning signs using the knowledge I'd gained. If I noticed anything questionable, I was quick to unmatch them. Being more selective and trusting my intuition has proven worthwhile. I'm now dating a wonderful man I met through the app and had never been happier. My dating app horror story taught me valuable lessons that ended up helping me find real relationship success in the end. Going on that first date with someone I met online was scary enough as it was. We had been chatting for a few weeks on the dating app, and he seemed nice and normal, even funny at times. When he asked to meet up, I hesitated but eventually agreed. We met at a coffee shop downtown during the afternoon when it wouldn't be too crowded. I felt anxious walking in, wondering if he would look like his photos. He did, thankfully. We exchanged awkward hellos and ordered our coffee. The conversation was stilted at first, but soon we began chatting more comfortably about our jobs, hobbies, friends. Nothing too personal yet, but it was going well enough that when he suggested dinner for a second date, I agreed. Over the next couple of weeks, we went on a few more dates around town. A walk in the park, dinner and a movie, just casual low-key stuff. I was starting to really like him. One day after another good date, he told me he had to go out of town for a work trip for a few weeks. I understood and wished him well, and that was the last I heard from him. At first, I figured he was just busy with work and would get back to me when he returned. But the days turned into weeks with no word. I sent a couple messages asking how his trip went, hoping he would respond. Still nothing. After a month of silence, I realized I had been ghosted. I was disappointed but tried to move on. Then strange things started happening with my social media accounts. Comments appeared on my Instagram posts mocking my looks and interests. Vulgar messages were sent from my Twitter account to random strangers. On Facebook, embarrassing old photos of me were posted publicly that I had deleted long ago. I was mortified and scrambled to delete everything, but the hacking continued. My personal information like my phone number and home address were even posted. No matter how many times I changed my passwords, the hacker kept getting back in. It slowly dawned on me that it must be my dating app Match. He had somehow gotten access to my accounts while we were dating and was now using them to harass me. I felt violated that my private photos and information were being used to humiliate me publicly. I reported the hacking to the social media companies and police, but the process to regain control of my accounts was difficult and lengthy. For weeks, I helplessly watched as the hacker pretended to be me and messaged nasty comments to all of my friends and family. My reputation was being ruined as acquaintances who saw the bizarre content being posted under my name assumed I had gone off the deep end. I deactivated all my profiles, but the hacker just created new fake accounts impersonating me. I was incredibly stressed and paranoid, not knowing how to stop the harassment. I regretted ever going on that first date with someone I barely knew. I should have been more cautious instead of trusting a stranger from the internet. After months of this torment, the police finally located and arrested the hacker. He turned out to be a stalker who fixated on me after our dates. All my accounts were eventually restored, but repairing my reputation was an uphill battle. I learned the hard way that you can never be too cautious online, even when meeting someone who seems perfectly nice at first. After that traumatic experience, I gave up on dating apps for a while and decided to focus on my close friends who I knew I could trust. But after taking some time to heal and rebuild my confidence, I eventually decided I didn't want that one bad experience to stop me from putting myself out there again. I still believed there were kind, genuine people worth meeting, even online. I just had to be more discerning. So I downloaded the dating app again and started chatting with new matches. This time I made sure to look out for any red flags early on. If someone seemed pushy about meeting up right away or getting too personal too fast, I politely moved on. When I finally did agree to meet in person again, I took precautions. I insisted on a public place and drove myself so I had an easy out if needed. I told a friend where I was going and checked in with him later. Biddy stepped back into the dating scene. Things went smoothly with one guy, Tyler. He was happy to take it slow and get to know each other gradually. We followed each other on social media but kept our profiles private at first. After a few weeks of successful dates in public areas, I felt comfortable enough to see a movie at his place. I knew where he lived and had told my roommate about him. The night went perfectly. We cuddled up watching the movie and bonded over our favorite scenes. He was a total gentleman and didn't pressure me at all physically. I left feeling good about Tyler and ready to keep dating him. Unlike my previous dating app experience, Tyler didn't ghost me afterwards. We kept seeing each other regularly and eventually became an official couple. Our social media accounts stayed respectful as we got closer. One day I decided to take the leap and change my relationship status on Facebook to in a relationship with Tyler. It felt scary making it public, but also like an important milestone. Tyler changed his status too and posted a sweet photo of us. Everything was going great until a couple months later when those familiar feelings of dread crept up again. Odd posts started appearing on my accounts, things I knew I didn't write. They were subtly manipulative messages to my friends and family trying to isolate me. My stomach sank as I realized my new boyfriend must have hacked my accounts. The violation felt even worse this time after I had trusted Tyler and believed he was different. I immediately confronted him and demanded he stop the hacking right away or I'd go to the police. To my surprise, Tyler looked shocked and insisted it wasn't him posting those messages. He helped me log in and reset my passwords once again. The strange posts stopped, but I remained wary. Tyler seemed sincere when he said he would never do something so awful. Still, I worried. But over the next few months, Tyler proved himself trustworthy in countless little ways. He never posted about me without my permission or crossed any boundaries. Eventually, I felt certain I could trust him completely. We've now been happily together for over a year and are planning a future. It just goes to show that while being cautious is smart, you can't let fear close your heart off entirely. Taking a chance on love is always risky, but sometimes it pays off with the right person. I'm so grateful I didn't give up on dating after that traumatic hacking experience. With Tyler, I finally found someone who treats me and my personal information with respect. We make each other feel safe, supported, and loved unconditionally. I know real horror stories happen online, but there are also beautiful stories. Despite the dangers, putting yourself out there is worth it for the possibility of finding a genuine connection. Just use your head, listen to your instincts, and don't ignore red flags. With some wisdom and a little luck, online dating can actually work out wonderfully. I was so excited when I matched with Liam on that new dating app everyone was talking about. His profile said he wanted to take things slow and get to know someone as a friend first before jumping into a relationship. This seemed so refreshing compared to all the guys just looking to hook up. We started chatting and really hit it off right away. Liam was so easy to talk to, and we shared a lot of the same interests. After a week or so of constant messaging, he suggested we be out for coffee. I was a little hesitant at first, but he seemed very genuine and kind during our chats. The coffee date went great. Liam was just as charming in person as he was over text. We ended up talking for hours and made plans to hang out again soon. I left feeling like I may have just met someone really special. Over the next several weeks, Liam and I fell into a comfortable friendship. We'd be up a few times a week to go hiking, check out new restaurants, or just hang out and talk. I felt totally at ease with him and was happy taking things slowly. Then things started to change. Liam became very interested in knowing who else I was talking to on the dating app. He wanted me to tell him details about any other guys I matched with or went out with. It made me a bit uncomfortable, since we were just friends after all, but I answered his questions anyway to avoid an argument. He also started making snide remarks about my other friends. He would criticize their choices and try to point out their flaws. I found myself making excuses to avoid introducing him to any of my friends, not wanting to subject them to his judgments. The real trouble began when Liam tried to dictate who I could spend time with. If I mentioned potentially getting drinks with a girlfriend, he would somehow plant himself into an invitation. If I said I might check out an art exhibit with a platonic male friend, Liam would insist on coming along as a third wheel. It got to where I couldn't make any social plans without him inserting himself. When I tried to gently tell Liam I needed some space to see other friends without him sometimes, he didn't take it well. He accused me of wanting to date other guys behind his back, which made no sense since we weren't even in an exclusive relationship. His controlling behavior only got worse, to the point where he demanded to know my location and who I was with at all times. The final straw came when I tried to plan a spa day with my two best friends from college who were visiting town. When I told Land he couldn't join us, he blew up my phone with furious texts about how I was leaving him out. He said my friends were clearly a toxic influence and forbade me from spending time with them. At that point, I realized this situation had turned unhealthy. Liam expected me to behave as if we were in a committed relationship, even though I had been clear about wanting to start as friends. His jealous and controlling behavior was unacceptable. I told him firmly that I needed space and wouldn't be seeing him for a while. Of course, he didn't take that well, blowing up my phone and even showing up at my apartment a few times unannounced. Thankfully, I stood my ground and refused to engage further. Eventually, he seemed to get the hint and backed off, though the whole experience left me feeling shaken and hesitant about dating again. In trying to avoid players looking for a hookup, I ended up with someone even more manipulative under the guise of wanting friendship. It just goes to show you have to watch for red flags no matter how things may seem at first. Taking things slow is one thing, but trying to control someone's life is a bright red line that shouldn't be crossed. The next time I match with someone who says they want to start as friends, I'll make sure to keep a close eye out for any controlling tendencies creeping in. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I won't let myself be fooled again. Looking back, there were some signs early on that I should have paid more attention to. Liam seemed a little too interested in the details of my day-to-day life and my social connections. He would remember tiny details about my friends and often asked probing questions about them. At the time, I thought it was just him being a good listener, but in hindsight, it was him gathering intel. There was also the occasional nagging about my appearance or interests early on, subtle little backhanded compliments meant to undermine my confidence. Of course, those only increased over time until it was full-on criticism about everything from my clothes to my laugh. Another red flag I made excuses for. I guess I was so caught up in the idea of finding a decent guy who wanted more than a fling that I ignored the red flags waving in my face. Live and learn, I suppose. At least now I know what overly possessive behavior looks like from the very start, so I can steer clear of it in the future. My friends keep trying to set me up with guys from the dating app again, saying I just had one bad experience. But honestly, I think I need a break from all of that for a while. Maybe someday I'll feel ready to get back out there, but for now I'd rather hang with my tried and true friends, focus on my hobbies, and regain my sense of independence. Rushing into something right away would just feel like a reaction to what happened. I want to rebuild my confidence as a single social person first. The takeaway here is trust your gut. If something feels off, don't make excuses or minimize it just because you really want it to work out. Pay attention to red flags early on and don't compromise your boundaries for anyone. You have to put your own mental well-being first and be patient. Real connections take time to build naturally. The right person will let things progress at a comfortable pace for both people. It started out so perfectly. I've matched with her on that popular dating app everyone seems to be using these days. Her profile picture showed a gorgeous girl with a warm, friendly smile. We immediately hit it off, chatting for hours about our shared interests: indie music, foreign films, hiking, and more. She was witty and outgoing in our messages, and I couldn't believe my luck in finding someone so compatible. We decided to meet up for dinner at a cozy Italian restaurant downtown for our first date. She looked just like her photos, stylish and pretty. The conversation flowed easily as we laughed over pasta and got to know each other better. I was really starting to like this girl. After dinner, we took a stroll through a nearby park and agreed to see each other again soon. Over the next few weeks, we went on several more amazing dates around the city. We discovered we had the same offbeat sense of humor and could talk for ages without running out of things to say. It felt so natural and fun when we were together. But then I started noticing some red flags. If I didn't respond to her texts immediately, she would get upset and accuse me of ignoring her. When I mentioned I was meeting some college friends for dinner, she demanded to know why she wasn't invited. She began showing up unannounced at my apartment when I said I had other plans. One night, as I was leaving work much later than expected, my phone buzzed with 20 missed calls and furious texts from her demanding to know where I was. I tried explaining I had just been busy with a last-minute work deadline, but she refused to believe me. The jealous, controlling behavior kept escalating. She would interrogate me about any women coworkers or friends, insisting I was attracted to them. If I went somewhere without telling her, she would use a location tracking app to monitor my movements. When I attempted to break things off after a particularly bad argument, she threatened to tell my boss lies about me to get me fired. She said she would post embarrassing photos of me online and send them to my family if I stopped talking to her. I was terrified. This person I had been so excited to meet was now making my life a living nightmare. The girl who seemed so sweet and normal at first was becoming increasingly volatile and erratic. I stopped responding to her calls and texts altogether, but she only became more enraged, stalking me on social media and leaving sobbing voicemails begging me not to leave her. She would show up crying at my doorstep late at night, demanding I forgive her and take her back. One day I came home to find she had broken into my apartment and trashed the place in a fit of rage. My clothes were ripped up, furniture overturned, walls vandalized with red spray paint. It looked like a burglary scene from a horror movie. She had lost all grip on reality. I realized I needed to get as far away from this toxic relationship as possible before things got worse. I told my employer, landlord, and family what was happening in case she tried anything. I completely wiped my online presence and moved across the country, changing my number and not leaving a forwarding address. It's been months now without any sign of her, but I still constantly look over my shoulder, worried she might find me again. That dating app encounter started as a dream come true but warped into my worst nightmare. Her escalating, unhinged behavior showed she was dangerously unstable. I'm just grateful I escaped before she could seriously harm me or my life. My trust is shattered after that traumatic experience. It will take time before I can open my heart to finding romance again without feeling afraid. For now, I'm focusing on healing and trying to put the pieces of my life back together. I decided to see a therapist to help me process the emotional trauma I went through. The anxiety and fear still overwhelm me some days, making it hard to focus on anything else. Talking it through in counseling has helped validate my feelings and start rebuilding my self-esteem that took such a beating. I know the manipulation and abuse were not my fault, even though she tried to blame me. My friends and family have been so supportive, reassuring me that I did the right thing by cutting off contact. They could see how much the relationship changed me during those few tormented months. I stopped hanging out with them as often, losing joy in my hobbies and passions. Now that I've escaped the toxicity, they say it's like having the old me back again. I'm working on being more cautious when meeting someone new. There were some early signs I overlooked or made excuses for. The flattery that felt excessive, the way she pressured me to spend all my free time with her, getting upset very fast over small things. I'm learning the red flags to watch out for so I can stay safe if I ever use a dating app again. For now, I'm keeping my focus on self-care and finding happiness within, not looking to anyone else to fulfill me. My employer thankfully understood when I explained the harassment at work and helped make sure security kept her away. She had been calling constantly and even showed up in the lobby demanding to see me several times. They walked me to my car each night and had extra guards on duty during those scary weeks before I moved away. I'm so grateful I had my workplace's support. The landlord at my old apartment building was also sympathetic, especially after seeing the vandalized unit. He'd let me out of the lease early with no penalties once I showed him evidence of the stalking. I was on the hook for repairs, but it was a small price to pay for my freedom. The property manager even gave me a positive reference for my next rental, knowing it wasn't my fault. While I'm still healing, I'm determined not to let one unstable person's actions destroy my ability to trust and love again when the time is right. For now, my focus is on self-care, leaning on my supportive community, and appreciating each day in my peaceful new home far away from the chaos. If I ever try online dating again, I'll listen to my instincts and not ignore any worrying signs. I'm rebuilding my life one step at a time, grateful to be free. What happened taught me to value my safety and well-being above all else. I still can't believe I fell for it. After being single for so long, I was thrilled when I matched with Perry on that new dating app. His profile showed a gorgeous blonde who loved hiking and going to art galleries, just like me. After chatting for a week, he suggested meeting up for dinner at his place. I know everyone says to me in public first, but he seemed so sweet and genuine. The date arrived and I double-checked the address he'd sent me. It led to a nice apartment building not far from my work. I brought flowers and a bottle of wine, hoping to make a good first impression. My heart fluttered with excitement as I rode the elevator up to the third floor. But when Perry opened the door, something felt off. He greeted me with a big smile and gushy hellos, but it came across forced and exaggerated, not like our relaxed conversations over the app. As he led me inside the sleek, modern apartment, I started to feel uneasy. This didn't seem like a man's home. No photos, fresh flowers, or cozy touches. More like a high-end bachelor pad. Trying to stay optimistic, I offered Perry the wine, which he eagerly poured into 2 glasses. He talked a mile a minute, asking me questions but not letting me get a word in. His bubbly persona from our chats was replaced by rapid, nervous energy. I took a few sips of wine to calm my own nerves. Then suddenly, I heard the front door bang open. Heavy boots stomped toward the kitchen where we sat. A tall, imposing man wielding a baseball bat stormed into the room, yelling that he caught me messing around with his girl. My heart dropped. This must be Perry's ex he'd vaguely mentioned during our chats. He had conveniently failed to say he was built like a linebacker with a violent temper. The man cornered me against the granite island, ranting about how I'd stolen his woman. I stammered apologies and explanations, but he wasn't having it. Perry shrank behind him, avoiding eye contact. That's when it hit me. There was no ex-boyfriend. This was all an act. Perry and this guy were running a scam to extort money from unsuspecting men on dating apps. So there I stood, shaking in fear as this hulk of a man demanded my wallet and watch. I begged him not to hurt me, insisting I'd give him anything he wanted. As he loomed over me, I slid my valuables across the counter, feeling disgusted at myself. The man swiped them up greedily while Perry looked on silently. He then ordered me to leave and never contact his girl again. I hurried to the door in shock, ignoring Perry's half-hearted apologies as I left. My hands trembled as I drove home, replaying the night's events in my mind. How could I have been so blind? The signs were all there, but I was too caught up in the fantasy of a new romance to see I was being played. Later, I filed a police report describing the pair in detail, but I don't expect them to ever be caught. These scammers know how to cover their tracks, and they know lonely hearts like me will ignore red flags in pursuit of love. I deleted all my dating apps after that. It will be a long time before I put myself out there again. My trust is shattered, my self-esteem battered. I ignored my gut and walked into a trap. But somehow, I'll find a way to pick up the pieces and move forward. Still, I know a small part of me will wonder, what if? Every time I meet someone new, this experience will haunt me for a long time. In the weeks following the dating app incident, I found myself withdrawing from friends and family. I was embarrassed at being so easily duped and didn't want to explain what happened. It was easier to hide away in my apartment, dodging concerned texts and calls. My performance at work started suffering too. I'd replay the scam night after night, torturing myself with everything I should have noticed, like how Perry never wanted to FaceTime, claiming his camera was broken, or how he always steered our conversations away from personal details. At the time, I thought it was just shyness. Now I see the truth. He was hiding something. I started questioning all my past relationships too, wondering if any of those men had secretly taken advantage of me. I know it's unhealthy to be so suspicious, but I can't silence that paranoid voice in my head anymore. After a month of spiraling, I finally opened up to my best friend Matt about the scam date. I expected him to make jokes or say, "I told you so" about online dating. But he just listened and expressed how sorry he was that it happened. Having someone validate my feelings did wonders for my self-esteem. Matt encouraged me to see a therapist to process the emotional trauma. While I hated admitting I needed help, I knew he was right. So I found a counselor experienced in treating scam victims. In our first session, she normalized everything I was feeling: the anger, shame, paranoia. She explained that predators specifically look for people who are isolated or longing for love. None of this was my fault, despite what my inner critic said. With her guidance, I started taking small steps forward again. I reached back out to friends I had ghosted. I joined a hiking group to rediscover old passions. And I stopped blaming myself every time those scam memories resurfaced. It's an ongoing process, but life is slowly returning to normal. My counselor says there will always be residual fears and trust issues. I need to accept that as part of my new reality instead of fighting it. Some days are still really difficult, but I'm healing little by little. Who knows if I'll ever use dating apps again? That world feels tarnished now. For all the happy couples they created, there's an ugly underbelly too. Scamming predators who steal hearts and money without remorse. I still have hope though. Maybe one day I'll meet someone offline who restores my faith in romance. A one with kind eyes and a genuine spirit. For now, I'm working on myself and finding fulfillment outside of relationships. My friends are still shaken when I share my story as a cautionary tale. They had no idea dangers like this lurked behind smiling dating app profiles. It's sobering to realize how easily that could have been one of them, lured into a spider's web. If my experience helps even one person avoid being scammed, and some good has come of it, I may carry these scars forever, but I won't let it harden my heart entirely. One day I'll be ready to open up again. Until then, I'm grateful for the lessons learned and the chance to rebuild stronger. I still remember the first time I saw her profile picture. She looked stunning: long blonde hair, bright green eyes, and a warm, inviting smile. Her bio said she was a pediatric surgeon who loved hiking, cooking, and tending to her rose garden. I was intrigued. A successful, accomplished woman who seemed down to earth and kind. I swiped right without hesitation. We matched immediately and began chatting through the app. Her messages were engaging, asking thoughtful questions and sharing funny anecdotes from work. She came across as sweet, humble, and so normal. After a week of good conversation, we exchanged numbers. The texting continued morning and night. She'd send photos from hiking trails during her days off and complain good-naturedly about early surgeries. I started looking forward to her messages each day. When she asked me out to dinner, I readily agreed. We met at a cozy Italian restaurant downtown. She looked just like her photos. Over candlelight, soft music, and wine, the conversation flowed easily. She told me about medical school and her residency days, how she adored working with children and felt it was her calling. I found myself hanging on to her every word, mesmerized by this fascinating, beautiful woman. More dates followed, and I grew enamored. The way she tended to stray cats in her neighborhood, her collection of vintage cookbooks, her dedication to running 5 miles every morning. Everything seemed to reinforce her image as a warm, caring overachiever. I lavished her with gifts and experiences, wanting to make her happy. She had won me over completely. But then small things began nagging at me. Plans she had to cancel last minute due to work emergencies. Strange gaps in her stories about medical school. Evasiveness about her family and childhood. Brief, hushed phone conversations when we were together. They were minor things individually, but together began forming a pattern I didn't like. One night after dinner, I asked gently about her work and if she was happy at the hospital. She became defensive, insisting everything was fine. But something about her reaction made me doubt her words. I realized how little I still knew about her job after all our time together. That night, I did an online search for her name at the hospital she had named. No results came up. I expanded the search to include all pediatric surgery practices in our city. Still nothing. The next morning, I drove to the hospital she had claimed as her workplace. The receptionist had never heard of her. My heart sank. More online sleuthing revealed her supposed alma mater had no record of her attendance. Old social media posts I unearthed contradicted stories she had told me. Everything was quickly unraveling. Confronted with the truth, she broke down. The fancy job, the thriving career, all fabricated. She had no medical training at all. Everything had been carefully constructed to present an image of success and stability. In reality, she lived with her parents and survived by hopping between short-term gigs and loans from anyone gullible enough, myself included. She used dating apps to find unsuspecting marks to fund her lifestyle. I had been a perfect target, showering her with gifts and expensive outings. She admitted exploiting lonely hearts was how she got by. I was crushed to realize our entire relationship had been a sham. I ended things immediately and was racked with anguish for weeks. My friends and family helped me see I had been taken advantage of by a master manipulator, but I still felt ashamed it had happened at all. With time and self-reflection, though, my pain turned to resolution. I vowed to be more discerning in the future and not let myself be blinded by romance again. Her web of lies was an important life lesson for me. Now I know charming stories and a pretty face can be used to hide a questionable reality. I've regained my confidence, but proceed with more caution, taking time to truly know someone before opening my heart. My dating app days aren't over, but I entered with renewed vigilance. Deception can happen anywhere, but I won't let past hurts close me off to new possibilities. I'm still an optimist at heart, just a wiser, more thoughtful one. What I thought would break me has actually made me stronger. I know someday the right person will come along, and I'll be ready. But I won't settle again for empty pretense and hollow romance. I'm holding out for something real. It's been a few months now since I uncovered the truth about her. The pain has lessened, but I'd be lying if I say I was completely over it. Some days I still find myself replaying things she said, looking for the deceit hiding behind her words. Other days I get angry at myself for being so gullible, for not seeing through the elegant facade she had constructed. I met Gems on a popular dating app last month. She seemed normal enough at first, cute, friendly, interested in the same hobbies as me. We really hit it off right away and went on a few dates over the next couple of weeks. Things were going well until I started noticing some odd behavior. It started small. On our third date, she made an offhand comment about my favorite cafe in the city. I didn't think much of it at the time, even though I had never taken her there or even mentioned it to her. A few days later, we met up for dinner. When I arrived at the restaurant, she made a remark about the blue shirt I was wearing and how it matched my eyes. I was confused since I didn't own a blue shirt, but brushed it off as just a mistake on her part. It wasn't until our fifth date that I really started to feel something was off. We went bowling, and she kept bringing up childhood stories about me, my favorite cartoon as a kid, the name of my first pet. I never told her any of those details about my childhood, so I had no idea how she knew them. When I got home that night, I noticed something seemed off in my apartment. The placement of things on my shelves and desk was slightly different than how I had left them. At first, I thought maybe I was just imagining things, but then I spotted a blonde hair on my pillow that wasn't mine. My paranoia started to grow over the next few days. Small things around my apartment continued to be moved or displaced. I started getting anxious anytime my phone buzzed, worried it was another message from Gems with some personal detail she shouldn't know about me. It all came to a head one evening when I was working late at the office. I stepped out to get some fresh air and noticed a familiar figure lurking across the street, Gems. She didn't see me, but I watched her snap a few photos with her phone before scurrying off down the block. It was clear she had been staking out my office building and spying on me without my knowledge. When I got home, I searched every inch of my apartment looking for cameras or recording devices. My heart sank when I found the tiny camera hidden in my bedroom lampshade. Gems had clearly been inside my home without my knowledge, invading my privacy in the most intimate of spaces. I immediately blocked Gem's number and all her social media accounts. But the sense of violation lingered, knowing she had been tracking my every move without consent. I reported her to the dating app and warned a few close friends about her disturbing behavior. Weeks later, I still find myself constantly looking over my shoulder, worried she's following me. I remove the camera from my lampshade, but I have no way of knowing if there are others I haven't found. I change the locks on my doors, but still don't feel totally secure in my own home. This experience taught me you can't always trust who someone presents themselves to be online. I let my guard down too early with gems and am now suffering the consequences. Next time, I'll be more cautious about revealing personal details and make sure to really get to know someone before allowing them into my home. My dating life is definitely on hold for a while as I try to move past this invasion of privacy. I've avoided going to my favorite cafe or other regular haunts, worried gems might show up. When I do go out, I find myself scanning crowds to make sure she's not lurking nearby. I only meet up with close friends who I know I can trust. At night, I double check that all my doors and windows are locked tight before going to bed. But I still toss and turn, paranoid that I'm being watched or that gems will find another way into my apartment while I'm sleeping. I decided to stay with my parents for a little while just to give myself some distance and peace of mind from my own place. But even there, I feel uneasy. I'll notice small things that seem different in my childhood bedroom, and worried gems has been there without my knowing. My parents have been really supportive, reassuring me that everything will be okay. But they don't fully understand just how deeply this experience has shaken me. The psychological effects of having my privacy violated so blatantly are hard to articulate. I find myself second-guessing everything. Was Gems really who she presented herself to be from the start? How long was she spying on me before we even met online? What details of my life did she manage to uncover without my consent? The questions plagued my mind on repeat. I decided to change my phone number, delete my dating profiles, and beef up security on all my social media accounts. I don't want to take any risks or make it easy for Gems to continue keeping tabs on me. A few close friends know my new contact info, but otherwise I've cut off contact with anyone I don't 100% trust. My coworkers noticed I was on edge when I returned to the office and asked what was up. I gave them a vague explanation that I was dealing with a troubling dating experience. I'm too embarrassed to reveal all of the unsettling details. Plus, I don't want to freak them out or make them distrustful of online dating themselves. This whole ordeal has left me feeling exposed and paranoid. I used to be pretty open with sharing personal details about myself, but now I'm much more guarded. I value my privacy more than ever before. It will take time before I feel comfortable putting myself out there again, either personally or virtually. For now, I'm focused on healing and restoring my sense of security. If anything good has come out of this, it's that I've learned to trust my gut when something feels off. Going forward, I'll make sure to proceed cautiously when meeting someone new, online or in person. As violating as this experience was, hopefully the lessons it taught me will prevent me from ever falling prey to such an invasion of privacy again. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship and was looking to get back into dating. My friend convinced me to download this new dating app called Swipe Right. After setting up my profile, I started swiping. Wayne was one of the first guys I matched with. His profile picture showed a handsome man with warm eyes and a friendly smile. When we started chatting, he came across as very interested in getting to know me. He asked thoughtful questions and seemed engaged in our conversations. After a few days of nonstop messaging, Wayne asked me out on a real date. I was thrilled. We met up at a cafe and the conversation flowed smoothly. He was just a charming in person. Wayne told me he was looking for something serious and wanted to take things slow. That aligned perfectly with what I wanted. At the end of the date, Wayne asked if he could see me again soon. I happily agreed. Over the next couple of weeks, we went on several more dates. Each one was better than the last. Wayne showered me with compliments and romantic gestures. He said he had never felt such an instant connection with someone before. I was really starting to fall for him. Then one night, I noticed a DM request on Instagram from an account with no photos or information. The message simply said, "Be careful with Wayne." I was confused but figured it was just spam and ignored it. But over the next few days, more cryptic messages came in warning me about Wayne. Eventually, I messaged back asking who this was. The person identified herself as Cassie, Wayne's ex-girlfriend. She claimed they had dated for over a year and that Wayne was extremely controlling and jealous. Cassie said he tried to isolate her from friends and would get angry as she talked to other guys. She also accused him of gaslighting her and manipulating her emotions. According to Cassie, Wayne used dating apps to find new victims once he got bored. At first, I thought this Cassie girl was just a jealous ex making up lies. But then I started noticing some red flags in Wayne's behavior. If I didn't text him back immediately, he would get upset and accusatory. When I mentioned possibly hanging out with a male friend, Wayne reacted very angrily. He had also made snide remarks about my appearance at times. Things were starting to feel off. I decided to sneakily check Wayne's phone one night when he was in the bathroom. Sure enough, I found angry texts to his ex Cassie about her new boyfriend. There were also messages to other girls lined up as backups. My heart dropped. Cassie had been telling the truth. I immediately ended things with Wayne. He blew up my phone, alternating between desperate apologies and cruel insults. His messages grew more and more unhinged. I ended up blocking his number. Over the next few weeks, I kept my guard up, worried he might show up at my apartment. Eventually, I deleted the Swipe Right app, too afraid to ever online date again. Looking back now, I realize Wayne targeted me because I was in a vulnerable state, freshly single and eager to find a new relationship. He love-bombed me at first, showing an intense amount of interest. But that was all part of his ploy to hook me in. As soon as he felt he had me, his true controlling nature came out. Thankfully, Al and I did. Wayne continued trying to contact me for a while, but I never engaged. Who knows what might have happened if I had ignored the warning signs and stayed with him. This experience taught me the importance of moving slowly with new relationships and keeping an eye out for red flags. I won't let myself be so easily manipulated again. Swiping right on Wayne was a mistake I barely avoided paying dearly for. From now on, I will be much more cautious about who I let into my life. I thought I was ready to start dating again after my last relationship ended, but this situation with Wayne made me realize I needed to take more time for myself first. In my rush to find a new partner, I ignored blatant warning signs and accepted unacceptable behavior. My friends tried to warn me about getting into a new relationship too fast, but I was too caught up in the honeymoon phase with Wayne to listen. I let my guard down and didn't stay true to my own values. If I had been less eager to couple up again, I might have noticed the red flags sooner. But the thrill of finding a charming, attractive guy who doted on me completely blinded me to any faults. Going forward, I will work on my sense of self-worth and not base my happiness on having a man in my life. I used to think being single meant something was wrong with me. But now I know it's better to be alone than with someone who doesn't treat me right like Wayne. His manipulation and possessiveness proved that his outward charm was just an act. Although this was one of the scariest experiences of my life, it taught me to listen to my gut. My instincts detected something was off with Wayne even as I continued dating him. In the future, I will not ignore those inner warning bells again, even if it means ending a promising new romance. It's just not worth risking my safety and sanity. I'm grateful Cassie had the courage to reach out to me about Wayne despite being a complete stranger. Most people would probably have just moved on with their lives after escaping an abusive relationship. But she tried to warn me even knowing I likely wouldn't believe her at first. I wish I had trusted my instincts and her words sooner, but at least I got out relatively unscathed in the end. Cassie and I have kept in touch since I blocked Wayne everywhere. It's been comforting to talk to someone who understands the manipulation and mind games abusers like Wayne resort to. We helped each other process the trauma and learn the warning signs for the future. I know we'll both be able to spot that kind of toxicity quickly next time and can protect ourselves and other women. My takeaway from this is that while finding love online seems easy and exciting, predators also use those platforms. It's so important to keep your guard up with strangers until you truly know someone. If a relationship seems too good to be true, it probably is. Don't ignore any behaviors or comments that make you uncomfortable, no matter how much you like the person. Your safety comes first. And remember, moving slowly is always the best approach if you want to build something real. Never let anyone pressure you into more than you're ready for. My days of rushing into romance are definitely over after Wayne. From now on, I'll be looking for genuine connection, not just empty words and promises. I still remember the excitement I felt when I first matched with her on Swipe Right. Lana seemed perfect, gorgeous smile, similar interests, and her profile made her sound so down to earth. Our conversations flowed easily and she seemed eager to meet up. I was thrilled when she agreed to a date. The first time we met in person, I was struck by how modestly Lana dressed compared to the bikini shots she had on social media. She looked great, don't get me wrong, but it was a sharp contrast to the risk-based photos filling her Instagram feed. I brushed it off though, figuring she just felt more comfortable showing some skin online versus in public. Over the next few weeks, Lena and I really hit it off. We had so much in common that she was always sweet and attentive when we were together. Part of me started to think I may have found the one. I was really starting to develop strong feelings for Lena. Things took a turn one night when I was scrolling through Instagram before bed. A sponsored post with a scantily clad woman popped up, and to my shock, I realized it was Lena. Turns out she had an exclusive, you know what, fans account where she posted explicit videos and photos of herself for money. I was stunned. This was not the type of girl I thought Lena was at all. I debated how to handle this revelation. Lana clearly enjoyed presenting herself in a free-spirited way online, but knowing she was selling intimate content to strangers completely changed my view of her. I felt betrayed and wondered what else she might be hiding. The Lana I thought I knew would never do something like this. In the end, I decided I just couldn't continue seeing someone who led a double life like this. I felt Lana had been dishonest about who she really was, and that violated my trust. The foundation of any healthy relationship is openness and honesty, and I no longer felt like I had that with her. I told her as much during what turned out to be a very difficult conversation. Lana didn't take it well at all. She accused me of being judgmental and claimed I was shaming her for expressing her love preference. I tried explaining it was the secrecy around the fans page, not the content itself, that was the issue. But Lana refused to see my perspective at all. The next day, a video popped up of Lana in tears, ranting about how no man could ever love her for who she truly was. She lamented how guys only wanted to date her if she hid part of herself away and dressed like a prude. It was obvious the video was meant for me. Seeing her lash out like that really stung. I didn't feel like I'd done anything wrong by wanting a partner who was upfront about things like having a fans account. But Lana's video made me out to be shallow and uncaring, and that wasn't the case at all. I really did care about Lana, but the dishonesty was a deal breaker for me. In the end, I don't regret ending things. As much as we vibed in the beginning, the deception about her online presence was too much for me to get past. I genuinely hope Lana finds someone who embraces every side of her, but that person just isn't me. Once trust is broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. My experience with Lana left me feeling a bit cynical and guarded about dating apps. You can present yourself as anyone online. It's impossible to get the full picture of a person until you spend time together in real life. And even then, they may have secrets that don't come out for weeks or months. I'm trying not to let one bad experience sour me completely on finding love. When the time is right, I'll get back out there. But I'll be taking things slower, keeping an open mind, and looking for honest signals that a match is truly the person she portrays herself to be. Considering how many people have hidden lives online these days, that may be easier said than done. But protecting my heart is worth getting a bit more discerning about who gets access to it. I'd rather be single than with someone I can't fully trust. As painful as it was, ending things with Lana reminded me that I deserve sincere intimacy built on transparency, not just a facade. The dating scene can be scary and confusing. You put your best self forward, trying to ascertain if a match is doing the same. That openness and vulnerability requires courage on both sides. When one person hides behind a crafted online persona, it poisons the chance at something real. I don't fault Lana for wanting to express her preference online, but doing so secretly while showing me a different side of herself felt unfair. I wish her contentment, but our values clearly didn't align. The euphoria of new love can blind you to red flags. I consider finding out the truth to be a painful gift. Moving forward, I know what I want and need in a relationship. Honesty first, then we'll see if the spark ignites into a lasting flame. For all the mismatches out there, I still believe my soulmate exists. Next time intuition warns me something is amiss, I plan to approach it with calmness, not judgment, and walk away if needed. When the right person comes along, being my authentic self will be enough. The only expectations will be kindness, trust, and mutual growth. Lana wasn't the one, but now I'm a step closer to finding the love I deserve. I can't let a broken heart close mine to future possibilities. My match is out there looking for me too. When we find each other, we'll both just know it's right. I still remember the day I downloaded that cursed dating app. I was feeling lonely after my last breakup and thought it would be a good way to meet someone new. When Glenn's profile popped up, he seemed perfect. His photos showed a handsome, well-dressed man with kind eyes and a warm smile. His bio said he was a doctor who enjoyed hiking, reading, and volunteering at animal shelters. We started messaging and really hit it off. Glenn was attentive and charming, asking thoughtful questions and remembering little details about my life. After a week of constant texting, he finally asked me out to dinner. I was thrilled. The date went even better than I expected. We instantly fell into easy conversation over wine and pasta. Glenn was well-spoken and courteous, insisting on paying the check. He walked me to my car after dinner, gave me a long hug, and asked if he could see me again soon. I agreed without hesitation. Over the next few weeks, Glenn and I went on several more dates around the city. We toured museums, saw movies, and tried new restaurants. He brought me flowers, held doors open, and always offered his coat if I was cold. I was falling for him hard. Then things took a disturbing turn. Glenn started asking where I was and who I was with all the time. If I didn't text him back immediately, he would blow up my phone with missed calls and angry messages. He demanded I stop talking to male friends and coworkers. If I refused, Glenn would give me the silent treatment for days. His charming personality also began to crack. He lied about big things like his job and family. He borrowed money from me that he never paid back. Glenn's temper flared over the smallest annoyances. He would later apologize and blame his outbursts on stress or poor sleep. I tried to break things off, but Glenn refused to accept it. He claimed he couldn't live without me. Glenn said he would show up at my apartment or job if I stopped taking his calls. He threatened to tell my boss we were dating and to post embarrassing photos of me online. I was terrified. The final straw came one night when Glenn demanded I skip meeting friends and have dinner with him instead. When I firmly said no, he slapped me hard across the face. I was shocked. As I desperately tried to leave, Glenn grabbed my wrist so tightly it left bruises. He got right in my face and chillingly whispered that I would regret this. I finally worked up the courage to block Glenn everywhere. For weeks, I lived in fear, jumping at every notification on my phone and constantly checking over my shoulder. Glenn did try contacting me from new numbers and social media accounts, but I never responded. He eventually seemed to give up, but the damage was done. I still find it hard to trust anyone I meet online after what Glenn put me through. That dating app was supposed to help me find love. Instead, it brought this manipulative, abusive monster into my life. I'm just grateful I escaped relatively unscathed, but I worry about other vulnerable women falling prey to his twisted charm. My dating app days are definitely over. The emotional scars from my relationship with Glenn will stay with me for a long time. Even though it's been months since I've seen or spoken to him, I still have nightmares about what he put me through. In my dreams, I'm often back in that restaurant on our first date, happily chatting away and falling for his act. But this time, the dream always ends with Glenn's hands around my throat as he tells me I'll never escape him. I've struggled a lot with guilt and shame over what happened. Rationally, I know Glenn is the one responsible for the manipulation and abuse, but there's still a small part of me that feels like I should have known better. How could I be so dumb to fall for his lies? Why didn't I listen to my friends who got bad vibes from Glenn early on? Maybe if I was stronger or smarter, I could have avoided the whole traumatic situation. The experience definitely left me with trust issues. I find myself second-guessing people's motives and watching for any red flags. If a date seems too good to be true now, I run the other way. I know there are genuinely kind people out there, but after Glenn, I feel incapable of spotting them. He damaged my ability to have faith in others. I hate that he still has that power over me. Rebuilding my self-confidence has been an uphill battle. Glenn took pleasure in making me feel worthless and crazy. He made me believe no one else would ever want me if I left him. For a long time, those hurtful words echoed in my mind. But through counseling and leaning on loved ones, I'm slowly regaining my sense of self-worth. I refuse to let Glenn keep chipping away at it. Part of moving forward is being more cautious with online dating platforms. I considered deleting all my accounts at first, but decided it would be letting Glenn control me once again. Instead, I'm much more selective and take the process slowly. At the first sign of possessive or erratic behavior, I'm done. I will never ignore those red flags again. As terrible as it was, I'm grateful I got out and I did. So many women in abusive relationships don't escape their partner's clutches. Though the trauma will always be with me, I survived. By sharing my story, I hope I can help others spot unhealthy patterns and avoid falling into this type of toxicity. One day, I do hope to find a healthy, loving partner, but I will enter into it with open eyes, confidence in myself, and zero room for manipulation. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship when I decided to give online dating a try. After setting up a profile on one of the more popular apps, I started swiping and chatting with different guys. One of the first men I matched with was Kevin. He seemed nice enough at first, average-looking, witty, and he worked as an accountant. We messaged back and forth for a couple weeks before deciding to meet up for dinner. The date started off well. We met at a cute little Italian restaurant, and Kevin was just as charming in person as he was over text. He asked me thoughtful questions and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me better. After we finished eating, he suggested we go for a walk through a nearby park. As we strolled and talked, he casually reached for my hand. I hesitated at first, but figured hand holding was harmless enough for a first date. We continued seeing each other regularly after that. Things were going well until they suddenly weren't. At first, it was little comments about how I should quit my job so I could spend more time with him. Then it was requests to share my location with him at all times so he could keep me safe. He also started demanding I check in with him whenever I went somewhere new. He claimed he just cared about me so much and wanted to protect me, but the requests were becoming suffocating. The most unsettling incident happened a few weeks later. Kevin invited me over to his place for dinner. Right when I arrived, he slyly asked if I could give him an item of my clothing, like a sock or scarf, to hold on to. He said it was for an art project he was working on, and he needed something personal of mine. I laughed it off as a strange joke at first, but he grew increasingly adamant. When I refused, he grew cold and distant for the rest of the evening. Things only got worse from there. Kevin would show up unexpectedly when I was out with friends or run into me accidentally at places I frequented. If I didn't respond to his texts immediately, he would bombard me with missed calls and voicemails demanding I contact him right away. He'd also started making threats, vague at first and increasingly specific, what he would do if I tried to break things off. I was terrified and felt like I couldn't tell anyone out of shame for how I had gotten involved with this man in the first place. The breaking point came one night when he followed me home after I had deliberately avoided seeing him. As soon as I got inside, he started pounding at my front door demanding I let him in. When I refused, he shouted threats through the door. I quickly called the police, who swiftly removed him from the premises with a stern warning. I never saw Kevin again after that night, thankfully. I made sure to save any disturbing voicemails and texts in case I ever needed evidence. It took me a long time to feel comfortable dating again after that experience. I learned to take things slow when meeting someone new and watch for any red flags. While most people online date without issue, there are unhinged individuals out there. Going forward, I promised myself I would end things at the very first sign of controlling or obsessive behavior. My safety has to come first, no matter how charming someone may seem in the beginning. After taking a break from dating for a few months, I eventually built up the courage to try again. I was wary at first, half expecting every match to turn into a nightmare like my experience with Kevin. But I knew I couldn't let one bad encounter stop me from putting myself out there entirely. Dating is always a risk, but most people are kind, genuine folks just looking for a connection. I decided to take it even slower this time around. I didn't agree to meet anyone in person for at least 2 to 3 weeks of chatting online first. This allowed me to get a better sense of them as a person before committing to an in-person date. I also told a close friend whenever I was going to meet someone and made sure to check in with them later. Having that accountability partner helped ease my worries. To my relief, most of the men I met with were perfectly pleasant. The conversations were a bit awkward at times, but no huge red flags like with Kevin. After a few weeks, I matched with a guy named Brian who seemed really great. He was handsome but also very kind and laid back. We messaged constantly for nearly a month before meeting up for pizza. The date went amazingly well. Brian was just as charming in person as via text. We ended up closing down the restaurant after talking for hours. I found him so easy to open up to, and he seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. After that, we started seeing each other multiple times a week. Unlike with Kevin, Brian never made weird requests or demands. He would ask to see me more often, but was always understanding if I was busy. He never once tried to guilt or manipulate me into doing something I was uncomfortable with. I no longer felt that knot of dread in my stomach when going on dates with him. I could just relax and enjoy getting to know this kind, fascinating man. Now, nearly a year later, Brian and I are still happily dating. I know not every relationship formed online works out this way, and I consider myself very lucky. But it just goes to show that you can meet wonderful people online, as long as you follow your instincts and stay aware. My experience with Kevin, while terrifying at the time, made me much better at spotting red flags early on. I don't ignore those gut feelings anymore that tell me when something seems off about someone. And I know now that I deserve someone who cares about my comfort and boundaries. While online dating can seem scary, the right person is out there if you stay true to yourself. For me, that person turned out to be Brian. I have been using the dating app for a few months with not much luck. Most of the matches either never responded or the conversation fizzled out pretty quickly. But then I matched with Sherry and she actually seemed interested in chatting with me. We exchanged messages for about a week before agreeing to meet up for dinner. The date went really well. Sherry was just as charming and witty in person as she had been over messaging. She asked me thoughtful questions and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me better. I was thrilled when she agreed to a second date later that week. Over the next few weeks, Sherry and I went on several more dates. I felt like we were really hitting it off. She would often text me cute little updates about her day and seemed eager to make plans to get together. For the first time in forever, I was really excited about a new relationship. But then one night, Sherry called me in tears. She told me her landlord was evicting her and she needed to come up with her rent payment plus a deposit for a new place immediately. I felt terrible and offered to loan her the money. She profusely thanked me and promised to pay it back as soon as possible. A few days later, Sherry texted saying she needed help with groceries and gas until her next paycheck. Again, I agreed to help her out, even though the requests were starting to make me a little uneasy. But I figured she was just down on her luck and needed some temporary assistance. Over the next few weeks, the requests kept coming from Sherry: car repairs, medical bills, you name it. Each time she had a tearful story and promised repayment soon. I couldn't bring myself to turn her down, even as the money I was lending her kept growing. Eventually, I realized something seemed off. The stories never quite added up, and the promised repayments never came. When I confronted Sherry, her whole demeanor changed. She became angry and threatening, saying she knew personal details about me and my family. I was shocked and terrified. I did some digging and discovered the pictures on Sherry's dating profile were fake. Her name, job, everything she had told me was likely fabricated. She was running an elaborate con, exploiting my trust and generosity. I felt so violated and ashamed for falling for it. Sherry continued to threaten me whenever I tried to cut off contact. She said she would send embarrassing info about me to my workplace if I didn't help her out. I was scared and didn't know what to do. I changed my phone number but was worried she would find other ways to harass me. This experience left me shaken and unable to trust. I took a long break from dating apps after that. When I eventually did return, I was much more cautious and wary. I no longer took people at face value right away. It was hard opening myself up again after having my trust betrayed so badly. Though painful, this situation taught me important lessons about protecting myself emotionally and financially when meeting someone new. I'm now better at spotting red flags early on and not getting drawn into endless sob stories. My dating life has improved as I've become more selective and guarded. Sherry left scars, but I emerged wiser in the end. Looking back, there were some concerning signs with Sherry that I overlooked or made excuses for. On our first date, she ordered multiple expensive cocktails and appetizers, implying I would cover the bill. At the time, I thought she was just indulging a bit since we were celebrating meeting in person. She also frequently texted me during work hours, even after I told her I couldn't be on my phone. I let it slide and responded when I could instead of setting clearer boundaries. Sherry often steered our conversations toward talk of trips, jewelry, and luxurious things outside my budget. I took it as aspirational rather than a red flag. When we spent time together, Sherry usually wanted to go to the trendiest, most expensive restaurants and activities. She had no interest in simpler date ideas I proposed, like meeting at a park or trying an affordable new cafe. I chalked it up to us just having different tastes. Looking back, it's clear she was identifying and exploiting my weaknesses from our very first interaction. I was so caught up in the romance that I ignored or justified away behavior that should have tipped me off. After the Sherry disaster, I reevaluated myself and my dating patterns. I reflected on when in my past I've let things slide to impress or accommodate others at my own detriment. I also thought about my blind spots when entering new relationships. This self-work has been invaluable, though intensely uncomfortable at times. While I'm hesitant to trust easily these days, I know with time I can regain faith. My eyes are more open now to inconsistencies versus just seeing what I want to believe. I'll be looking for partners who are reciprocal, honest communicators from the start. The hurt of being scammed doesn't have to hold me back forever. I'm grateful for the friends who supported me through this ordeal. They validated my feelings of violation and self-blame. I could confide in them throughout the aftermath and recovery process. Their reassurance and patience helped restore my faith in others again. Though I wish it hadn't taken such a shocking situation, I did gain perspective from my experience with Sherry. It reminded me not to relinquish my self-respect or compromise my values, no matter how dazzled I am by someone. My generosity should be reserved for those who sincerely appreciate me, not exploited by deceitful takers. The right person will never make me feel scared or trapped. While it damaged my ability to trust for a while, this ultimate betrayal wasn't the end for me. Some inner strength emerged that I didn't know was there. I discovered I can rely on myself to get through hard times, even if I feel alone. Sherry meant to diminish me, but unintentionally made me wiser and more discerning when opening myself up to new people. I won't make excuses or ignore red flags again. I still remember the day I first met Crystal on that dating app. Her profile picture showed a smiling blonde woman with sparkling blue eyes. She seemed charming and outgoing in our initial messages, so I was excited when we arranged a first date at a local cafe. The date went really well. Crystal was even prettier in person and seemed attentive as she listened to me chat about work over coffee. She laughed at my jokes and appeared genuinely interested when I talked about my hobbies and dog. I left the date feeling optimistic about seeing her again. Over the next couple weeks, we went on a few more dates around town. Each time, Crystal came across as warm, funny, and kind. She remembered little personal details about me, like my favorite sports team and foods, and asked thoughtful questions about my job and family. I found myself really starting to like her company. Then things started getting strange. One morning, I got a text from an unknown number that said, "I can't stop thinking about you." When I asked who it was, they didn't reply. Over the next few days, I got more messages from unfamiliar numbers expressing romantic interest in me. The messages referenced specific details about my routine, like, "I loved seeing you at your usual coffee shop this morning." At first, I thought it must be spam bots or some kind of prank. But slowly, I realized the messages aligned too closely with Crystal's affectionate behavior on our dates. She knew which coffee shop I went to in the mornings before work. She must have secretly followed me or driven by my apartment to know my patterns so well. A feeling of unease began to wash over me. My suspicions were confirmed when I got an anonymous love letter in the mail containing things only Crystal could know about me, like my dog's name and favorite park. It suddenly dawned on me that she had been subtly stalking me this whole time under the guise of romantic interest. When I confronted Crystal over the phone, she broke down and confessed her obsession. She had researched me extensively online before our first date and had been covertly tracking my movements around town ever since. She cried that she couldn't let me go because she loved me so much after just a few dates together. I was horrified by her admission and told Crystal bluntly that we needed to stop seeing each other. But she refused to accept that it was over. She began calling me repeatedly from different unknown numbers, leading up to 30 voicemails a day, begging me not to leave her. She would oscillate between professing her love and making subtle threatening remarks if I tried to cut her off. I started feeling exposed and watched wherever I went. If I blocked one obsessive number, she would simply start contacting me from another. Once she somehow figured out the code to get into my apartment building and left roses on my doorstep. I was really scared by how unhinged Crystal had become. She clearly knew my address, my favorite hangouts, my daily routine. I worried what she might be capable of if I rejected her too harshly. I started taking alternate routes home from work and constantly looking over my shoulder when I was out, paranoid I'd see her watching me. Ultimately, I had to get the police involved to get Crystal to leave me alone. They paid her a visit and issued a stern warning against harassment and stalking, which finally seemed to make an impact. The incessant calls and messages tapered off after that. I also changed my phone number, moved apartments across town, and deleted my dating profiles for good measure. For a long time afterwards, I suffered from lingering anxiety and had trouble trusting people, especially new romantic partners. I changed jobs so Crystal couldn't find me as easily. I had recurring nightmares where I'd see her shadowy figure following me. But eventually, the paranoia faded as I reclaimed my life. Looking back now, I realize no one could have predicted Crystal's disturbing obsession early on. She seemed totally charming and sweet during our first happy dates. But that wholesome online persona had hidden her scarily possessive and unbalanced side, which emerged once she fixated on me. I learned the hard way that you truly don't know someone until time reveals their darker secrets. Crystal appeared one way, but was living an entirely different, stalking-fueled reality in her mind. I'm just grateful I was able to escape relatively safely in the end. My story serves as a cautionary tale about romantic relationships in the digital age and avoiding becoming entangled with unstable people. Even years later, I'm still impacted by that traumatic dating experience. I have a much harder time opening up and trusting new partners, always wondering if they might become obsessive like Crystal did. My family worries I've become too closed off emotionally. I know I need therapy to fully move on from the violation and paranoia I've felt. But for now, I'm just taking things slow, keeping my guard up, and hoping lightning doesn't strike twice when it comes to dating app stalkers. The memories of looking over my shoulder constantly and feeling unsafe in my own home still plague me. I changed so much about my life just to gain some peace of mind after Crystal's harassment. While I've made progress in healing, a part of me remains on edge, worried that letting my guard down could make me vulnerable again. My friends tell me not every woman is like Crystal. Most people online date without turning into predators. I want to believe them, but my trust was shattered once already. Though I now have strategies to spot red flags earlier, I don't know if I'll ever date with the same openness as before. When I see stories in the news about dating app stalking cases, I feel for those victims, knowing the fear and violation they must be experiencing. I wish there was more accountability for apps to screen for obsessive users and better protections for targeted people. Though I know statistically the chances are low, I still have the occasional nightmare of Crystal reappearing in my life someday. I worry I'll never fully relax unless she's been convicted and can't contact me again. For now, staying vigilant, varying my routine, and keeping private remain my best defenses if she ever tries to return. The emotional scars from Crystal's fixation run deep even now. I was fortunate to physically get away once I uncovered her disturbing secret life. But the memories of being psychologically tormented still emerge at unexpected times. Healing from that kind of emotionally abusive relationship takes time, patience, and help from loved ones. I'm working on being less guarded and giving people the benefit of the doubt when dating again. What happened with Crystal was an extreme situation, not the norm. If I wall myself off due to past hurts, I know I can miss finding someone wonderful. Heartbreak can either embitter you or teach important lessons if you let it. I'm trying my best to grow stronger, not more cynical. When we first matched on Sweatbright, she seemed totally normal, even cool. Her profile said she was an aspiring photographer, and she seemed artsy and free-spirited in her pics. We exchanged some messages and really hit it off, so we decided to meet up for a drink. The first few dates were great. She was funny and charming in person, too. She suggested we start taking couples selfies to document our budding relationship. I thought it was a cute idea at the time, so I agreed. At first, it was just a photo here and there, but soon she started demanding we take pics and videos constantly, even when we were just hanging out at home watching TV. I went along with it, not wanting to upset her this early on. Over the next few weeks, things started getting weird. She became completely obsessed with photographing every single moment we spent together, no matter how mundane. Once I caught her taking photos of me while I was sleeping. It seriously creeped me out. When I asked her to stop, she got defensive and insisted couples' photos were normal. Another time, I noticed she posted one of our intimate videos to her public TikTok without asking me. When I confronted her, she dismissed my concerns and said I was overreacting. She refused to take it down, saying it already had thousands of views and that she didn't understand what the big deal was. I started to feel less like a boyfriend and more like just a character in the story of her life that she was constantly documenting for social media. One day, I came across a dating profile on Tinder using recent pictures of me that I knew Bri had taken around the apartment. Shocked and angry, I immediately asked her about it. She casually admitted to making fake accounts using our photos to test other guys and see if they would match with me. She didn't seem to grasp how disturbing and unethical this was. When I told her she needed to delete the fake accounts immediately and stop invading my privacy, she became furious. That's when things got truly scary. She threatened that if I didn't stay with her or stopped letting her photograph me whenever she wanted, she would post all kinds of fake information and photoshopped images to social media to try and ruin my reputation. She said she knew hackers who could get into my accounts and wreak havoc on my professional and personal life. I was horrified. This woman I had been dating for a few weeks had turned into a complete stalker. I knew I had to get away from her safely and quickly. I pretended nothing was wrong for a few days while I secretly prepared to cut ties. I deleted or hid any intimate photos she had taken of me around the apartment and made sure my social media accounts had updated, complex passwords, and maximum privacy settings enabled. When I felt I had done what I could to protect myself online, I broke things off over text and immediately blocked her number and on all social platforms. She did not take it well, to say the least. For days, she blew up my phone with messages ranging from desperate pleas to disturbing threats. She said she would tell the police I abused her if I didn't come back. Terrified she might follow through on her blackmail threats, I contacted the authorities myself and was able to get a restraining order against her. I still worry what she might try to do with those photos of us together, but at least I got her out of my life for good. This traumatic experience taught me to take things much slower when online dating in the future. Looking back, there were definitely some concerning red flags with Bri that I should have paid more attention to early on. She moved way too fast, demanding constant photos and videos after just a couple dates. Her obsessive photo taking and complete lack of boundaries around posting things online should have been signs something was off. I won't ignore my instincts next time, no matter how much I like someone. I'm now a lot more cautious and selective when meeting someone through a dating app. I don't let anyone take intimate photos in the early stages before really getting to know them first. I also do periodic checks of my online presence to make sure nothing inappropriate has been posted without my consent. And if anyone seems even remotely unstable or threatening, I end contact immediately and take steps to protect myself. What happened with Bri was a wake-up call I will soon forget. But I'm grateful I recognized the signs of trouble early enough and got out of that toxic situation relatively unscathed in the end. My dating app days definitely aren't over, but I'll be vetting any future matches much more carefully after this. A cute selfie really isn't worth risking my privacy and safety ever again. Looking back now, I can see all the red flags I'd overlooked with Bri early on. The intensity of her interest in me should have been concerning from the start. She was immediately talking about our future together and wanting to meet my friends and family after just a few dates. At the time, I took it as a sign of how much she liked me, but in hindsight, it was clearly unhealthy attachment. She also had a tendency to alternate between putting me on a pedestal 1 minute and then tearing me down the next. She would lavish me with over-the-top compliments, then get upset over small perceived slights and say really hurtful things. This emotional roller coaster left me constantly walking on eggshells, worried I'd trigger her next outburst. Bri's extreme jealousy was another glaring red flag. She would interrogate me about any women I interacted with, even just a waitress or barista. She demanded I delete all female contacts from my phone and would monitor all my texts and social media messages. I went along with it to avoid conflict, even though I knew her possessive behavior was irrational and controlling. Looking back now, it's clear Bri had some deep personal issues driving her unstable behavior. But at the time, I was too infatuated to recognize the signs or stand up for myself. I let her steadily isolate me from friends and control my life in ways no healthy relationship should. I'm just grateful I was able to get out relatively unscathed before things escalated even further. The experience left me wary when dating, but also better equipped to identify unhealthy signs early on. I won't ignore red flags or give up my boundaries just because someone showers me with affection again. My time with Bri taught me love shouldn't feel like constantly walking a tightrope. A healthy relationship is built on mutual trust, respect, and communication, not jealousy, control, and fear. I now know what positive qualities to look for in a partner, and if any warning signs appear, I will address them right away instead of making excuses. I still remember the day I matched with Alicia on that dating app. Her profile picture showed a pretty brunette with a warm smile. In her bio, she listed interests that perfectly aligned with mine: hiking, live music, and craft beer. I immediately felt drawn to her, and we started messaging right away. The conversation flowed easily, and we really seemed to click. After a few days, we exchanged numbers and began texting frequently. Alicia was attentive, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me better. I found myself looking forward to her messages and starting to develop feelings for this woman I had never actually met. About 2 weeks after we first matched, Alicia suggested meeting up for dinner. I eagerly agreed and we made plans to try a new Thai restaurant that had just opened downtown. I took extra care getting ready that evening, excited for our first date. When I arrived at the restaurant, Alicia was already seated at a table. She stood up to give me a quick hug before we sat down. As we looked over the menus, she made several references to foods she knew I liked and activities I had told her I enjoyed. I was impressed she had recalled those details from our conversations. Throughout dinner, I was struck by how perfectly Alicia seemed to match me. She laughed at all my jokes, shared my taste in music, and told me she loved my favorite sports team. It was almost uncanny how similar we were. For the first time in a while, I genuinely saw potential with someone. After that first date, Alicia and I began spending more time together. We'd go on hikes, check out new restaurants, or just hang out at my place. Within a few weeks, it felt like we had known each other for years. Little by little, I started noticing odd things, though. Alicia would reference childhood stories I had told her, even obscure details I barely remembered sharing. She somehow knew about a minor fender bender I had never mentioned to her, and she always seemed to show up at my favorite cafe right when I did. At first, I brushed away my confusion, figuring she just had a really good memory, but the coincidences kept piling up. One night, I came home to find Alicia already in my apartment. When I asked how she got in, she said she had a copy of my key made weeks ago so she could surprise me. I started to feel unsettled, like she knew too much about me. Out of curiosity, I searched her name online but could find no trace of her. It was like she hadn't existed until we met on that dating app. One day, I got off work early and stopped by my apartment before meeting Alicia later. As soon as I walked in, I noticed something odd poking out from behind my bookshelf. I moved the shelf and felt my stomach drop. Hidden there was a small camera pointed directly at my couch. Frantically, I swept my apartment and found another camera in my bedroom, a hidden microphone in my bathroom, and a GPS tracker attached under my car. Shocked and disturbed, I realized Alicia had been monitoring my personal life all this time without my knowledge. I didn't know what to think. This woman who I thought was perfect for me had been deceiving me and invading my privacy for her own purposes. I worried what she was doing with the footage and information she had gathered about me over the past few weeks. I knew I had to cut off contact with Alicia immediately. I stopped responding to her messages, blocked her number, and avoided anywhere she might find me. A part of me was terrified she was still watching my every move. Weeks later, just when I had started to feel safe again, I arrived home to find a folder sitting at my doorstep. Inside were hundreds of photos of me going about my daily life. At work, the gym, the grocery store. Some were zoomed in shots through my windows. My hands shook as I flipped through image after image documenting my private moments over the past month. Alicia had clearly been tracking me even after I cut her off. I reported Alicia to the dating app and the police, but with only a first name and no definitive proof, they said there was little they could do. I never heard from her again, but I remained constantly vigilant, worried she was still lurking. That experience shook me to my core and destroyed my sense of privacy and safety. I still find myself questioning people's motives and looking over my shoulder, haunted by the woman who so easily deceived me. I never imagined a simple dating app match could expose me to such a chilling invasion of privacy. Now I know one can never be too cautious when inviting strangers into their personal life. In the weeks after I discovered Alicia's surveillance, I found myself suffering from intense anxiety and paranoia. I had trouble sleeping as every small sound in my apartment made me jump. I stopped going to places we used to frequent together, worried she might show up. I even considered moving, though I knew that was likely an overreaction. My friends tried to be supportive, but had difficulty understanding the depth of my fear and sense of violation. It wasn't just that Alicia had lied to me. It was the feeling that my identity and autonomy had been stripped away as she gathered private details about my life. I decided to see a therapist to help deal with the trauma and regain my sense of safety. During our sessions, we explored how my trust had been shattered and the difficulty I now had forming connections and allowing vulnerability. I realized just how deeply Alicia's deception had impacted me. The healing process felt slow and frustrating at times. I still occasionally had the urge to check my apartment for cameras or look over my shoulder when walking at night. But gradually the anxiety began to subside. I started reassuring myself the chances of a similar violation happening again were very low. On my therapist's advice, I even re-downloaded the dating app we had met on. She encouraged me to not close myself off to finding love, while also setting healthier boundaries. I eventually matched with a kind woman named Julia who understood my caution and was willing to take things slow. With Julia, I was careful not to overshare personal details all at once. We focused on living in the moment together, not obsessing over our pasts. Over time, as trust organically built, I opened up more. I realized not everyone had nefarious intents and was able to let my guard down again. Nearly a year after my experience with Alicia, I feel mostly healed and back to my old self. I still do periodic checks of my personal space for any monitoring devices, more out of curiosity than actual suspicion at this point. I like to think I'm now better equipped to recognize red flags if they arise. Though that unsettling chapter of my life is behind me, I'll never forget the valuable lessons it taught. Never ignore your intuition when something feels off. Don't let desire for love overrule your personal boundaries. And always keep an eye out for any obsessive or controlling behaviors, which are never justified, no matter how charming the person seems initially. I'm grateful my story had a happy ending with enormous support from friends, family, and a qualified therapist. But I worry about others who suffer similar invasions of privacy and don't get help processing the trauma. If someone you care about experiences such an ordeal, provide non-judgmental listening and encourage them to talk to a professional. With time, compassion, and counseling, even the deepest wounds can eventually heal. Well, that was a bust. I finally worked up the nerve to ask out this girl I matched with on Swipe Right, and it could not have gone worse. I don't even know where to begin. I guess I'll start from the beginning. I matched with her a few weeks ago, and we really hit it off chatting through the app. She seemed cool. We liked a lot of the same music and shows. I got her number and we texted back and forth for a bit before I asked if she wanted to meet up for dinner. She said yes and suggested we try that new Italian place downtown that just opened up. I was thrilled. I spent way too long picking out my outfit and psyching myself up. I felt good walking into the restaurant like I had a real shot with this girl. The hostess sat us and it was a bit awkward at first. We kind of laughed at how weird first dates can be. Our server came over and took our orders and I tried to keep the conversation flowing. I was definitely nervous, but I thought it was going all right. Well, that did not last long. As soon as our food came out, something changed. I'm not sure what happened, but all of a sudden an uncomfortable silence fell over the table. I racked my brain trying to think of something to talk about, but my mind went blank. Every time I tried to start out a conversation about music or pop culture or anything really, I just got one-word answers from her. I started to panic a little inside. I had been so excited for this date, and now here I was barely getting single syllables out of her. We both just kind of picked at our food, the silence hanging heavily over us. I kept opening my mouth to say something, anything to break the tension, but nothing came out. God, I must have looked like such an idiot, sitting there silently like a deer in headlights. She definitely seemed put off, just kind of looking around the restaurant and avoiding eye contact with me. After what felt like an eternity, we finally finished eating, and she quickly asked for the check. I paid, even though I knew at this point there was no chance of a second date, and we walked out to our cars. I managed to sputter out an awkward "see you later" as she drove off without even a wave goodbye. I berated myself the whole drive home, replaying the nightmare date over and over. How could I just shut down like that? It's like as soon as I sensed her pulling away, my brain stopped working entirely. I wanted so badly for this date to go well, and I absolutely blew it. Later that night, in a moment of delusion, I texted her saying I had a nice time and we should do it again sometime. Yeah, no response to that one. The next morning, I saw I had been blocked on Swipe Right. Can't say I blamed her after that disaster. I'm so frustrated with myself. It's not the first time this has happened either. I don't know why I freeze up so bad around women I'm interested in. I just get in my head and spiral out of control. I wish I could go back and salvage that date, keep the conversation flowing or crack a joke to break the tension. Anything but just sitting there in silence. Clearly, I have some issues to work out if I ever want to actually connect with someone. This girl, I really did seem to hit it off online, but I tanked it as soon as we met in person. I'm worried now that this will keep happening, that my anxiety will get in the way of making a real relationship. But I'm trying not to get too down on myself. Online dating can be brutal and first dates are always awkward. At least now I know to be prepared for those uncomfortable silences and have some backup topics in mind. I just have to get back out there and try again. Third time's the charm, right? Maybe I'll even see that girl on Swipe Right again someday and have a shot at redeeming myself. Hey, I can dream. In the meantime, looks like it's back to swiping left and right until I find the next unlucky girl to subject to my lousy first date skills. Wish me luck. I know I need to keep putting myself out there if I ever want to get better at this whole dating thing. Each failed date is a chance to learn. It just stinks knowing I probably missed out on something good with that girl from Swipe Right. We really did have a great connection online. I keep replaying our pre-date texts and chats, wondering if I should have done something different. Maybe that came on too strong or said something that rubbed her the wrong way before we met up. Or maybe she just wasn't feeling it from the moment she saw me in person. I'll drive myself crazy over analyzing it all. The truth is, I'll never really know what went wrong. She clearly wasn't into me once we got to dinner and she shut down. Trying to force a connection that isn't there never goes well. As bummed as I am that it didn't work out, I'm just going to have to pick myself up and get back on the dating horse. Easier said than done, though. Rejection stings, even when it's just someone you exchange a few messages with. It hurts my confidence, which I struggle with already. I start questioning if I'll ever meet someone who actually wants to get to know me. The whole process just feels hopeless sometimes. But I know staying positive is key. I have to keep reminding myself that I have a lot to offer. Sure, I may get awkward and tongue-tied on first dates. That's just nerves. It takes time for my humor and charm to come through. The right girl will give me a chance to get comfortable and open up. I can't let one bad date convince me I'm undateable. The dating app scene may be rough, but I'm not ready to give up on finding love. My friends say I clean up nice, and I've been told I have a good heart. I just need to get out of my own head and stop psyching myself out on first dates. Easier said than done, of course, but I'm trying to shift my mindset. It's a numbers game. The more dates I go on, the more practice I get. So chin up, eyes forward. On to the next Tinder match. Third time's the charm, right? I survived one dating horror story, and I'll survive many more before I hopefully meet the girl of my dreams. Unless I totally scare her off with my awkward silence on the first date. Yeah, still got some kinks to work out, but I'll get there eventually. What's life without a little trial and error? I've got thick skin and endless optimism. Let the swiping marathon continue.
Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.